This is Israel at War. I'm Steve Conover. I've asked Dr. Jim Showers, our executive director, back to talk about the news coming out of the north of Israel. In the south of Israel, Israel borders Gaza, Jordan, and Egypt. And in the north, Israel borders Lebanon and Syria. When the war broke out in Israel on October 7th, it was in response to the violent attacks in the south of Israel from Gaza. But our eyes now turn to the north, and that is what we're discussing now. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Steve.
Good to be with you again.
It's good to be here.
Israel's northern border. We're hearing a lot of news about Hezbollah, Iran, everything that's happening in the north. The news was about the south of Israel.
Yes.
Last time we discussed on camera. What can you tell us about what's happening on the northern border of Israel?
Well, the northern border of Israel primarily is Lebanon and Syria, a little bit of Jordan, and the terrorist organization that occupies Lebanon is called Hezbollah. Hezbollah is different than Hamas. Hamas is a Sunni terrorist organization in Gaza that was formed in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. Hezbollah, on the other hand, came into existence early 80s as part of during Israel's war in Lebanon, and Hezbollah is Shia. So what does that mean? Well, there are two main divisions or streams or groups of Muslims today. One are called Sunni Muslims and the other are Shia. Has to do with which line of descent they think is the correct line of descent from their prophet Muhammad and whose commentaries they read and believe. But typically, historically, Sunni and Shia do not agree, but one thing that does unite them is their opposition to Israel. And so what we have with Hezbollah is really, to me, more than just a proxy of Iran. Iran helped to fund them when they began, helped to train them, and they have really been an extension, if you will, of Iran in Lebanon. And a number of years ago, they began to take over politically as well as having a presence there. So they control a lot of Iran or a lot of Lebanon today. But they take their marching orders from Iran. So once the attacks happened on the 7th of October and Israel began to respond back, then threats began to come from Hezbollah. Hezbollah threatened that if Israel invades Gaza, that they will invade Israel. Hezbollah is a greater fighting force than what we see out of Hamas. They have more soldiers, estimated to be 100,000. They have something like 150,000, give or take, rockets, many of which can travel a longer distance than the ones that are fired out of Gaza and also have better accuracy. And they will use the same kind of methodology that we saw over the last week and a half in Gaza, where they will send barrages of missiles that will overwhelm the missile defense systems, and many of them will get through. So they are using that leverage to warn Israel not to go into Gaza. And if they do, they will attack, and that it will be a bloody war for Israel. Now, Israel knows Hezbollah is there. They know what to expect. They are well prepared for a two-front war. And Iran is now stepped into the making threats as well. They have threatened that Hezbollah will join the battle and that they will try to launch an attack against Israel out of southern Syria. Hezbollah also, there are some Hezbollah fighters in southern Syria and some missile systems there as well. But we know Iran's had a presence in Syria for many years now, and they've been trying to build up their forces in the south, even though Israel has attacked those forces many times, trying to destroy them. There still is some presence. So the third thing they're trying to do is get Muslims in the West Bank to attack. So Hamas certainly has some of their terrorists are located in the West Bank. We also have Fatah in the West Bank. But all of this is yet to be seen. There's a lot of threats being made right now. We won't know what's going to happen until and if Israel decides to go into Gaza. Everybody expects Israel to go into Gaza. That they can't just allow Hamas to go on because the threat remains that they could come right back and do the same thing again in southern Israel and attack other communities and kill more Jewish people. So the presumption now, today when we're recording this, our President Biden, visited Israel. We don't know what's going to come out of those meetings. And Israel right now faces so many pressures. They've got, of course, America, but other European countries in that, trying to counsel them on what they should do. Israel always gets counseled to use less force, not more force. And there's the hostages in play. So we have to wait and see what's going to happen. What we do know is that Israel has the Lord on their side, and Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran do not. So we will, we certainly hope Hezbollah chooses not to get involved. Israel has said that if they do get involved, they have the firepower to destroy Lebanon, and they will unleash it. So it will be really unfortunate for everybody involved if they decide to join this conflict. But on the other hand, it won't be surprising if they do.
Last August, you and I stood at the border of Israel and Lebanon, where the Hezbollah is parked right over top of one of the towns there. A friend took us there, and we got to know some of the people. And seeing the great need for bomb shelters in that area it's very powerful to stand there. One of the places, as you know, we got to stand was where a rocket had landed in the center of town that was launched during the previous Passover, last Passover. So to be there, to see the synagogue that rocket nearly missed, and also the bomb shelters that the generous donors of Friends of Israel placed in that space, it makes it that much more of a prayer need. It makes it very personal, I think, for us because we have friends living there. In light of that, how should we be praying for Israel?
Well, Steve, you and I had a privilege most Christians never will have, which is to go to a community and begin to appreciate the tremendous need there is, how vulnerable they feel. That community literally sits on the border of Lebanon, as we learned. We could look across the fence at a Hezbollah camp, and seeing the damage that was done last Passover when the missiles landed in the town. There they don't get 30 seconds when the alarm goes off that a missile is coming. They get 5 seconds at most. And so those shelters become so important. They save lives. We put one shelter at a bus station where kids gather going to and from school so that they have shelter in the case of more missiles coming in. And we were just told last week by our friend who took us up there how terrified they are that the same thing will happen in their community that happened along Gaza, because they were literally sitting on the border. It's not like the border's a mile away or a half a mile away. The fence runs right along the edge of their town. So Israel has evacuated many of the communities along the border with Lebanon right now. I think 20-some communities have been evacuated. This is unprecedented. In past wars, Israel didn't evacuate territories. They stayed. And so the prayer needs, the great question, what should we be praying for? Of course, we always go to the verse Psalm 122:6. It talks about praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And we know that the ultimate answer to that prayer for peace is when Messiah comes. But in the meantime, we need to be praying for Israelis. We pray for the people in these communities that are terrified. And even if you don't live along the border, because of missiles, there's great fear right now. Everybody's attuned to hearing sirens and knowing exactly where they're going. Think about this. You order your day, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing throughout the day, you're always thinking of where is the closest shelter in case that siren goes off. And it's been going off since October 7th. Every day somewhere in Israel, those sirens are going off as missiles are being fired. The Knesset was getting a briefing this week on the status of the war when sirens went off in Jerusalem and they had to go to shelter. So there is that threat. Any moment you could be under attack. That, of course, produces a fear and a concern. So even just the citizens need prayer, but certainly the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, those soldiers that are so brave, that are willing to put their lives on the line to defend Israel. When you live in a tough neighborhood where your neighbors don't want you, you have to be willing to stand up and protect yourself. This was the dream and the goal of the leadership of the Jewish community coming out of World War II. How do you prevent another Holocaust from occurring? And the answer was, if we don't have our own country where we can defend ourselves, we'll never be able to protect ourselves. Israel has that country, but the price is steep. The price is young Israelis who have to put on a uniform, who have to defend the nation. And some who've died, there's been over 200 soldiers, I heard, that already have died in this conflict, and there will be more who will die in order that Israel can remain in that land. Hamas's goal, Hezbollah's goal, is to remove every Jewish person from the land of Israel, to claim it for Allah, and to make it a Muslim country, exclusively Muslim country. The only way that happens is if they drive Israel into the sea. That's what they say. That's one of the phrases they use. We need to be praying for Israel. We need to be calling upon God to ask him to intervene and fight for Israel. And Israel is important to the world. Even the people that hate Israel, Israel's important. And because God's redemptive plan goes through Israel, and it's not complete, it's not finished. God has more work yet to do in his redemptive plan. And so for this world to be repaired, to be restored, as John said in Acts chapter 3, will happen when God sends his son back to earth. We need Israel. Without Israel, that never occurs. And so we need to be praying for the leadership of Israel, the government officials and the military. They have very, very important decisions to make. And as the conflict increases, which we think it will if they go into Gaza, certainly, they're going to need all the more skill in knowing how to respond. You know, militaries, just like sports teams, they always have game plans and what they plan to do until the conflict begins, until the game begins. And then everything changes. Things happen that you didn't plan on. Things that you thought would work don't work. The ability to be able to think and adjust and respond to what's going on is critical, and Israel's always been very good at that. And so we just pray that they will have the skill and the wisdom in this fight, which is really a fight for Israel. It's a fight for their lives. And so we need to be lifting this up continuously to God. He hears our prayers. We know that.
Yes.
And when we don't pray as well as we could, the Holy Spirit intercedes and really lays before God our heart.
I really appreciate you coming on. This has been very helpful and insightful, and I just want to thank you for making time for it.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Jim. And I would ask you, as Jim mentioned, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. If you'd like to stand with us as we stand with Israel with a financial contribution, visit foi.org/standwithisrael.